Hello lovely people! If you're new here, hi, I'm Jessica. My DNA left the factory with a missing piece and now my body and the instruction manual just don't align. I'm also a mum to an adorable 23-month-old who thinks the word adorable is awful. So who better to make a video on talking to your children about disability whilst looking adorable? And summary. It's actually raining outside because if you can't tell from my accent, I live in England. I have two genetic disabilities, one that affects my nerves and one that affects my soft tissues, including my organs, my ligaments, and, the stuff that holds you together, etc. And happy EDS Awareness Month! Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, a thing I've had since I was born. So let's talk about disability awareness for children. Due to this, I am both deaf, blind of one eye, prone to epic migraines, and just bits of me stop working occasionally. That's probably the easiest way to explain it. They just stop. So for a period of time, maybe large patches of my skin just sort of stop feeling, sweating, getting hot and cold properly, or my foot just refuses to work, or an entire arm just nopes out for a few months. So I have experience with a range of mobility aids and a range of reactions from small children. And I've condensed all of my best advice into this video. There's also a book list, which I'm going to talk about more at the end of this video. The important thing to remember is that conversations about difference and disability are always age appropriate. We do not need to wait until children are old enough to start bringing in heavy topics, because that just isn't how the world works. Apparently it surprises some people to learn, but some of us are born with disability. And thus, just like non-white children in countries where they are the minority do not get to wait until an age appropriate point to learn about racism, disabled children need to learn about how bodies function differently at a very early age. Teaching children and young people to share and accept each other's differences is part of building an inclusive society that can help shield children with disabilities from bullying. After all, numerous studies show that school children with both visible and invisible disabilities are at a greater risk of experiencing bullying. We want to protect vulnerable students, right? But also, if our children are the non-disabled ones, it's great to know how much they can benefit from encouraging empathy and kindness when it comes to inclusivity too. In fact, we owe it to our non-disabled children to teach them about disability. They're entering a world full of disabled people after all. 1 in 5 people have a disability or chronic health condition, and the percentage of children receiving extra help in school reflects this. Whether it's your child's best friend, their sibling, a grandparent, a random child on the playground, their next door neighbour, or even something they will grow up to deal with themselves, disability will touch their life. They have to learn how to interact, live and work together. This is their future. Although the disability rights movement has made huge progress over the years, we still have a long way to go when it comes to society at large, understanding the experiences of disabled people and the world becoming more accessible. A huge key to that is Gen Z and Gen Alpha, the saviors of society. So, we better do a good job teaching you guys. No pressure. Number 1, teach yourself first. Don't panic. You don't need to learn about every different disability ever to teach your child about disability properly. You're just doing something different from teaching them that bodies come in one specific exact way and then letting them stumble upon other types of bodies, which is understandably surprising, shocking and confusing to them. No, instead what you do is start at the beginning by teaching them that all bodies are varied, from skin colour to height to number of limbs to waist size to hair colour to glasses and eye shape and gaps in their teeth. We're all made up of a number of variables. Just keep in mind that you are normalising differences, and disability is just a part of that. First, adjust your own way of thinking to see that people just have different ways of being. Sign language is just another language. It's not a lesser form of communication. Using a wheelchair is not tragic. It's often a liberating and helpful piece of equipment for a person who would otherwise be sat in a chair. Act the way you want your child to act as an adult. I remember a parent once saying to their child when I got on a bus, "Oh, watch out for those crutches, you'll get knocked off your feet." What a good way to make that child worried about the scary disabled person and then learn to deal with that anxiety by making jokes to ridicule people who are different from her. Yay, good job. Make it clear that disability is part of the normal human experience by talking about it in a matter-of-fact way as just another part of our diverse world, not something frightening or sad. Plus, learning about disability alongside your child can help with your own mind frame. It's important to remember that not all disabilities are visible, most cannot be seen with the naked eye, and even those that can also be covered by clothing. And learning about disabilities helps us be more mindful about recognizing and responding to needs with creativity and kindness. Is your child's friend naughty, or do they have a diagnosis that just hasn't been shared with you? Sometimes what seems like a behavioral response is actually a disability response. Also, there's no such thing as a bad child. I don't believe in bad children. Connect lessons to people in your own life if you can. Like, hey look, Granddad has a Zimmer frame, Cousin Emma has an eye patch. But also, disabled people aren't put on this earth to teach your child, so don't approach that random co-worker who you don't interact with ever just because they're in a wheelchair and ask for their labour in teaching your child things, because no. I will tell you one secret though. Disability isn't really a big deal to kids until adults make it a big deal. Again, just stop panicking. This does not need to be a big important conversation. Talk about it naturally when it comes up. But also, keep disability as part of your learning about people conversation. 2, be mindful of language. This comes in 2 parts. One part, the specific language itself, and the other, maintaining positivity with explanations. If you use positive language with your child, they will continue to use that kind of language on their own. So, why does Cousin Sally wear hearing aid? Rather than, because she can't hear, go for, because they help her to hear. Why does Mrs. Singh sit in a wheelchair? Rather than, because she can't walk, go for, she uses a wheelchair to help her get around. Equally, use the term disabled and don't shy away from it as if it's a bad word, because children will pick up. Using differently abled and handy capable just says you're trying to slap a huge pink Hello Kitty band-aid onto what you think is an ugly oozing spot. Stop it. Don't frame disability as a negative thing, and in doing so further perpetuate the exclusion, isolation and negative stigma of people with disabilities. The more straightforward we are in our language, the easier it is to have conversations with our children. The other part is, of course, making sure you're just not teaching your child outdated and kind of weird language. And I know this can be scary. People panic a lot about saying and doing the wrong thing so often when it comes to disabled people that they end up just doing nothing, and then we're just kind of left on our own in little islands of isolation. I mean, I can't tell you if identity first or person first language, that's disabled person versus person with disabilities, is the more accepted term in the disabled community where you live, because I don't know where you live. But I can tell you to go and find out which term your child should know by learning from some local disabled people. Also that I prefer identity first language. I just think the other way around sounds like rabies to me. Person with rabies. Obviously that's not the only reason, but you should find out for yourself why many disabled people don't like person-first language, because you'll learn a lot in the researching. Also, I have a video on that. You can click here. 3, start as early as possible. If you're a disabled parent, then teaching your child about your own disabilities from day 1 is probably not going to be hard, but there will definitely be surprises along the way. My 23-month-old has only just twigged that other people are deaf too. They're not just signing to me to interpret. He's currently attempting to put everyone in his life into hearing and then deaf boxes, which is fun because he has one grandfather who is deaf and one grandfather who just also wears hearing aids and watches the TV at 50 volume. So where is the line? It's never too early to start teaching children about differences amongst their peers. In fact, it is common for children to have a fear reaction about difference, and that absolutely needs to be addressed because we don't want them to think that people who are different from them are to be feared, but the feeling is okay. Create understanding now when kids are young to avoid bullying and fear later. With infants and toddlers, you can start by using picture books that include representations of people who look different and similar to them. Books with actual photographs are the best for this. We started very early on and it was something I was very keen on for all of the differences imaginable. From my experience, kind of between 18 months and 2, they start to verbalize that they see physical differences in other people. We should follow that curiosity, helping them to make sense of it rather than shaming them for noticing. 4, notice difference. Noticing differences is always okay. An inclusive culture begins with understanding that children are able to identify differences instead of pretending those differences don't exist. Let children be curious. They're always learning, even if you are not consciously teaching them. So you have to constantly watch what you're doing and saying because they are soaking it in like little sponges from day 1. So let's make sure that they're getting the right information. Now, some differences are invisible to children, and that's even more confusing. So explaining developmental and learning disabilities can not only help children understand various types of ability, but also just aid them in making sense of what's happening around them. Why are some people reacting differently in this situation than I am? He looks extra happy. Should I be too? She cries and swings her arms around when the music gets really loud. Does she know something I don't know about the music? Should I be scared of something coming right now? These conversations can include diagnoses like autism, ADHD, and even Down syndrome, which to you might be visually clear, but to your child is is not. Remember to also mention the strengths of children with these diagnoses. But what about older children? In the 5 to 9 age range, children are more concrete thinkers. So answer with the facts and don't be wishy-washy. Say, I don't know, or let's look it up if you don't have the answer to a question rather than just trying to fudge it. They will very literally take your information, so euphemisms are not helpful. Encourage humanizing difference in their mind. A disabled child isn't here to fill the quota for just one thing. That child has a name, interests, hobbies, a favorite animal, a food they hate eating, and a movie they want to watch again and again. And always stress respect. It is okay to be curious and it's okay to ask questions, but at this age they can understand that there is a time and a place. You can work together on being thoughtful and respectful. For the 9 to 12 group, focus on emotional thinking through helping them unpack their own feelings as well as other people's when it comes to disability, as social groups are really becoming important at this age. Remember that it is important not to shame anyone for a feeling, and they may feel understandably conflicted if they're dealing with backlash from peers for maybe being friends with a disabled class member. Just normalize that confusion. Hey, even adults get confused about how best to include people. But emphasize the importance of overcoming that fear so we're not singling people out. Once you have a teenager in the 13 and up range, I can't imagine, dive deep into full-on discussions about social exclusion, individual differences, and intervening when they see bullying, with a focus on empathy and kindness. Whilst yes, stress that isolation can cause depression and anxiety, and rile them up about how inaccessible the world can be, and doesn't that suck, and how can we make the world a better place for disabled people, you could also introduce the idea of ability being similar to a radar chart or a spider chart, depending on which school you go to, where there are many variables of physical, mental, and emotional ability. 5. Notice similarities. Whatever the age of your child, it's important that your conversations about disabled people don't just centre around differences. Make sure to point out similarities too. If you're reading through a book with your child that has 5 unnamed characters in it, and one of them is in a wheelchair, change how you talk about her each time. One time she's, this one has curly hair like you. The next time she's, this one has freckles like you. Then, this girl doesn't have blonde hair like you, she has dark hair. Then, she uses a wheelchair. Pointing out similarities helps your child to see that whatever differences may be observed are a part of who that person is, but not the entire picture. Even if you can't think of a single thing in common off the top of your head, just go for, they're a person living their life like we are. Oh yes, I do have a toddler who asks for a constant stream of information on every topic, and if you stop, says, more please, more please, more please. 6. Disability is value neutral. Fun fact that you may not have considered. Disability is value neutral. It isn't a good thing and it isn't a bad thing. It's just a thing. We don't need statements like, oh, that is so sad. I am so sorry. Or, I'm lucky enough to not have anyone with a disability in my family. Wow, okay. I'm sure your child will feel really warm and fuzzy when they consider opening up to you about how they might have a medical issue later on. Cool. Equally, how brave that child is for going to school despite their disability is so blindly uncritical of the larger social problem that it physically hurts. What else is that child meant to do? Not get an education? Are you going to do something about their difficulty accessing schooling or their risk of being bullied, or are you just going to call them inspiring for existing? Disabled people don't purely deserve respect for overcoming our disabilities. Reframe in your mind the idea that disability is bad. Remember instead that it just is. 7. Allow all questions, even the kooky ones. Always be your child's safe space to ask questions, even the super uncomfortable ones, and never shame them for asking. Children generally do ask their parents about disabled people they see in public, if they aren't super common with disability as a concept. What is wrong with that man's leg? Why is that lady in a buggy? Why is that boy talking weird like that? Curiosity is natural and perfectly okay, even if it does feel exceptionally uncomfortable as their parent. But if we shut them down, tell them they're being rude, or ignore the question as if it hasn't been asked, we're sending the message that disability is shameful and taboo. Instead of scolding, make it clear that their questions are welcome and give a straightforward answer, such as, that person's using a wheelchair to move around. And following on from that, admit when you don't know the answer. Children often ask why someone has a disability. Unless you know them personally really well, and even then maybe not, you probably don't actually know the answer to that question, so it's perfectly fine to say, I don't know. There are different opinions amongst disabled people as to what the best thing to do is from there. Whether parents should say, I don't know, let's ask if they'll tell us about it. Or just not ask a random person going about their day to divulge medical information that they may find upsetting. I mean, I talk about disability on the internet and I'm very open about my own, but I also have days where it is particularly upsetting to me and I just don't want to talk about it. My body's broken, yay. Shall we talk about the many things I've never been able to do? Dark, Jessica. But many disabled people, including me most days, are happy to answer questions about disability. So just start with a polite, is it okay if we ask you a question? Which acknowledges to everyone that this is an entirely optional conversation, and make sure you are ready to pull your child out as soon as the other person looks uncomfortable. We often have child-friendly versions of our usual answers and can deliver them with a smile. This will help to fill a gap in your child's knowledge. I mean, her legs don't work is different to, well, my legs get tired easily, or my legs aren't very strong, or one of my feet points in a different direction to the other, so I tend to fall over on surfaces like this. Just make sure to talk to the person about some kind of boring life stuff too, like the surroundings or the weather as well, so your child knows that disabled people can talk about things other than disability. You know, boring adult things that are dull. And of course, remember to stress your child that no one owes them their life story. People don't have to answer their questions. And hot take, don't ask the parents of a disabled child what is wrong with their child, not expecting the child to answer, because they shouldn't be giving away their child's medical information, and you shouldn't expect them to. Thank you. 9. Move from awareness to acceptance. In diversity and inclusion spaces, we used to think that awareness was the end goal. I suppose kind of naively assuming that with awareness comes acceptance. But sometimes you do have to say the quiet part out loud. Rupert has so many children's books that talk around the subject, just kind of hoping that if they hint at how we should accept all people, no matter what, and everyone's great regardless of their differences, then the children reading will somehow immediately understand which differences we're talking about and why there might be a problem and what to do about it. Other kids are being mean to Mary? Okay, is it because she's wearing a purple dress? Or has ginger hair? Or because she just sat in the wrong chair? Or only has one hand? Or because she has pale skin? Or she's tall? Or because she said the wrong thing? Or she walked into the wrong room? So when I read those books, I say the quiet part out loud. If I'm a 2-year-old learning about the world, I don't get the degrees of difference here. The internet has done a wonderful job of spreading information and lived experiences to masses of people. The level of awareness in different conditions is very high, even if the actual deeper understanding of every single condition isn't quite there. And how could it be? There are a lot of conditions. Which is why you don't need to educate yourself and your child on every single different disability in order to begin teaching them about accepting difference. You probably can't name every country in the world, but you probably would expect them to be accepting of a new classmate who had just moved to town from another country and was looking to make new friends. Keep that same energy. Accept all variations. 10. It is not the school's responsibility to teach your child about disability. Many schools now include disability as some part of their curriculum in anti-bullying and acceptance. Yay, I wish they had done that back in my day. But as with most school lessons, your student will take the most from it if the lesson has already been prepped for at home and they aren't walking in blind. Teachers can help create and spread inclusive curricula and activities alongside counsellors, nurses, administrators, and hopefully students who themselves have disabilities, but they need allies to, at the minimum, support conversation and preferably to introduce it. Don't let the burden for introducing disability to your child fall on the first disabled child you encounter at the school gate. Create a sense of belonging for those students too, so that they can learn without feeling isolated and alone. Book list. So, I mentioned extra content, and here it is. I have made an Amazon book list of children's books featuring characters with disabilities. Now, I have a toddler who currently enjoys books that are in the 3 to 6 age range, so the books listed here are from 0 to 6 because they are the ones that I have experience with. I will definitely add more as he ages and we read more things. Also, please feel free to add your faves in the comments below. I think books are a great way to broaden children's minds and introduce them to things they don't see in their day-to-day life. You can click the link in my description to access the book list, and I will also also be sharing some of the books and the link in my stories on Instagram, where you can follow me at Jessica Out of the Closet. When you are assessing a book about disability for children, one good thing to think about is making own voices a priority. Whilst there are good books and media produced by creators who have close relationships with disabled people, if you want to know what being disabled is actually like from the inside, then you have to ask a disabled person. Children have a really strong sense of what is right and what is wrong. Fairness is central to how they think, so it's important to them that everyone should be welcome everywhere, and thus we can engage them in thinking about how we can make the world meet everyone's needs. If they're old enough, start a conversation about how a person's disability might affect their needs, and how we can adapt our behaviour and our world to meet those needs. You might be surprised what they come up with. My almost 2-year-old said a few days ago that he has a superpower because he can talk underwater with his hands. He can't swim underwater though. But I like his gumption. Reach out to your local community, and also don't assume all disabled people are part of a community. Often people are very isolated by disability. I mean, talk to the mum you see at the school pickup time who has a child with disabilities and is dying to chat about something unrelated to the monotony of struggling to get her kid help. Talk to the disabled parents about their car or their Saturday night. Invite disabled children to birthday parties and play dates. And if you're the disabled people, be you. Be that awesome disabled family. Obviously, not everything you do is related to disability to the extent you will probably forget that you are different pretty often. Just be casually you, breezing through those stereotypes, getting out there, being your fabulous self, showing your community that your family is just like theirs most of the time. Okay, thank you so much everyone for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this video. It was fun to make. And I hope you like my book list because I enjoy books. As of the day this video goes out, there are only 3 days left of my merch sale before the merch store closes. That will be closing on the 8th of May. You can find the link to the store by clicking down below. Everything is 40% off, and when it is gone, it is gone. So make sure you get it now and keep watching to find out what we do next. We'll see you in the next video. Bye!